So, Matt, let me get this straight because you've had a lot going on. But if I understand it, you had a daughter graduate high school, which means a senior trip, another daughter getting engaged and looking at venues for a wedding, an older relative going through a major surgery, medical procedure in your own, your son's first job, all in 1 month.
Yes, and my parents working on relocating from their home that they've been in for 30 years.
That's a lot.
There's a lot flying around, yes.
I'm sure you've heard the term the sandwich generation, where you're getting
Yes,
smushed from an older generation who's going through a lot of changes as they age, but also still the demands of young people at home or young adults as they're starting their career. What's it feel like to be in the midst of that sandwich generation?
my wife Tam and I feel like the biggest peanut butter and jelly sandwich you've ever seen, to have our 4 children, 3 of which are adults, but then to have both sets of our parents going through different things. There's a lot of demands being put on us and a lot of joy and concern and support and help we're trying to provide.
Well, that's why I thought for our video this month, it'd be helpful just to talk through like how do you navigate being in the sandwich generation? How do you navigate helping those people around you without yourself getting lost, without
Right.
yourself getting smushed between the top and bottom? That's what I wanted to talk through.
Yeah.
And I know you have several thoughts as being in the midst of it.
You spoke of the senior trip that we took our daughter on, and we flew to our destination. And as most of you who have flown realize, the flight attendant says, "What about the oxygen mask? Put it on yourself first before you help those others around you." So, the version of that Tammy and I have done with our financial life and preparing for all these events is we have religiously spent 90 minutes 4 times a year with Jonathan Harrison, our favorite financial advisor, for many, many years. And so specifically over the past couple years, as our adult twin daughters have graduated from college and working toward an eventual marriages and so forth, it's been very important to kind of predict or anticipate what's coming down the pike. So Jonathan would help us prepare each quarter. Okay, what do we want to work toward next? Where do we want to put those dollars? What do we need? How much do we need to put in certain places? So that as events came up, we were able to navigate them with ease.
As a side note, I think it's surprising to some people when they find out that as a financial planner, you have your own financial planner
Yeah.
instead of you just doing that. What does that look like and why you would do that instead of just doing it yourself?
Yeah. So some of it's eating our own cooking as a sound stewardship advisor. We thoroughly enjoy meeting with our clients on a quarterly basis, about 90 minutes a time. And that helps them navigate their lives. So why wouldn't Tammy and I meet with a high quality financial advisor like Jonathan, where those 90 minutes 4 times a year are really, that's the time when we spend talking about money. And if we didn't talk about it then, it we would just kind of bumble along and it wouldn't be an organized plan. It would just be happenstance or, oof, we just got surprised by that. What do we do next? So, but because we have those special times every quarter with Jonathan that she can say anything, I can say anything, it's in a safe spot. And then Jonathan kind of mediates that and helps us figure out, okay, guys, here's what we need to do next.
What I think is interesting about that is I think most people when they're thinking about the financial services industry, they think the real value lies in like some magic asset management strategy or a blend of stocks and bonds or some tax planning. And I do agree that those are incredibly valuable, but so much of the value also lies in helping you get on the same page
Right,
with your partner and keep making progress separate from all those other things are really important and good. But
right.
even if you have all those in place and you're not having regular conversations consistently, you're never going to notice and feel the progress, or you might be making progress, but in a direction that isn't where you ultimately want to go.
Right. Yeah, you land in the wrong spot.
So, as you're thinking about, having navigated in the last, 45 days, so many different milestones and, needs and life changes that are happening around you, How has having a personal plan that you've already been talking about for years, how has that been a factor? And what did that plan entail that allowed you to go through this season easier than without?
Yeah. So I guess first of all, being aligned with my wife and trusting God for all the outcomes is the primary thing. But if my wife and I are aligned and we're getting the resources we've been blessed with in the right spots, then I know God can help us navigate anything. We knew some of these things were coming in May of 2026, but most of them we didn't. So that for it to all be happening around May of 2026 was the big crunch on the sandwich. But because we had the resources in place, and not only financial but also relational resources with advisors and other supporters along with family, that's allowing us to navigate this as best as possible.
And one thing we talk about a lot in financial planning is preparing for the unexpected. One mistake see people sometimes make if they're just, kind of crafting their own financial plan is they build the Cinderella perfect version that doesn't account for,
Right.
oh, you're going to have things go wrong with your house or car breakdown, or you're going to maybe lose a job, or, the market's going to tank when you're trying to retire, or there
Right.
was a recession, whatever. If you're building a plan that everything has to go right in order for that plan to work, it's probably not a great plan. So as we're thinking about, being prepared for what we don't know is going to come, that also I think entails a certain level of flexibility. Part of your financial plan has been a big goal of eventually relocating, selling your house, buying a new house. And so there's been a lot of energy and attention on, okay, what does that look like? How has that changed, or what, being now sandwiched with the needs of younger and older family members, how does flexibility need to be worked into the plan?
Fortunately, we've held that with open hands because literally this morning, Tammy texted the realtor saying, "Please pause our search.
Wow.
There's too many things flying around." So 90 days ago, we've been looking at different things, but now press pause on that relocation in the area. So, and the realtor completely understood because we have a relationship with her. As we create flexibility in our clients' plans, you also have to be able to release or delay some gratification about your own goals in order to handle these surprises that come up with the older generation, what we call G1. Tammy and I's generation is generation two, and then my kids are generation three. So G2 or generation two needs to stay as flexible as possible, withholding our goals with as open hands as possible so that you can accommodate G1 and G3 as much as possible. Okay. So, Sound Stewardship advisors pride ourselves on being able to help those three generations coordinate between each other. The fourth generation is coming up later, but we commonly are helping generation one, two, and three coordinate everything that's going on. And Tammy and I are an example of Jonathan's helping us do that across those three generations as easily as possible by God's grace.
So, with expectations coming at you, and I would say needs coming at you from, family members, how do you create guardrails so that you don't become overwhelmed,
hmm
and set boundaries to say, okay, what are ways that are healthy for me to help, and what are ways that are too much for me to help? Any thoughts
hmm
there?
Sure, and it's going to be different for different families because there's so many dynamics at play between the generations. But one thing our advisor did for us is helped us identify what is the amount we're spending on the senior trip, what and where does she want to go, just getting those expectations in line before we go talk to the travel agent to make all that happen. Or on these future weddings, what is the amount that we're trying to bless our daughters with to be able to sponsor a wedding? Because some of the medical issues were surprised that prompted the family to say, okay, who's available for this, who's available for that. Those surprises forced some expectations to be discussed within the family. So, to the extent you can be doing that ahead of time, it really helps. If you're surprised by something, then you need to quickly create expectations as soon as possible. But don't keep working through the issue without trying to set expectations with the other family members or advisors you're working with.
One mistake I've seen families make, let's take an example of, paying for college, is if the spouses go into it saying like, "Well, we're going to pay for college," but don't set a boundary or set an expectation
Hmm.
there. A kid who picks an in-state school that's 25,000, if they say, "Okay, well that's what we're willing to pay," but then, their other child picks a private school that's 50,000 a year, like that's a massive difference. And two things I wonder. One is, do both dollar amounts fit into the plan?
Hmm.
And then two, is it fair? And, not every family is necessarily trying to do the same thing. We say love them equally, but, treat them uniquely. But I have seen parents who said, well, we committed to pay for college. So, the fact that they picked a $60,000 a year school, I guess we have to pay for it all,
Hmm.
even if it hurts their own personal financial plan.
Right.
That's where setting those expectations, setting those boundaries. And then if you say, "No, we're paying for 25,000 a year." If you wanna go above that, then you can, but that's maybe where you have to work more to pay for it yourself, or, layer in appropriate amount of student loans, those kinds of things.
Hmm.
I've personally found that by actually establishing that boundary ahead of time, it really helps the conversation, because most kids, they don't know as they're looking for schools, they don't even know how much their parents can afford or are willing to
Right.
contribute. By
Yeah.
setting the boundaries, it helps them get more clarity around, is this school worth it?
Right.
Now I have a price tag I can decide, as opposed to just, I don't know, my parents are paying for it.
Yes. Yeah. So, any of those Generation 3 concepts around college funding, we encourage and can support the clients having those discussions in their sophomore, junior, senior year of high school before we were even submitting applications to colleges. Bring them into the conversation in appropriate ways to give them the right um, dollar amount boundaries.
The other boundary I think about is back to your discussion on the benefit of having your own financial plan and kind of putting your own oxygen mask on first, is if you know whether you're on track personally for, let's say, your retirement plan.
Right.
If you're not on track for that, it's really hard for you to borrow for those lifestyle expenses in retirement,
Right.
as opposed to, in a pinch, you can do student loans. But knowing what the true trade-offs are is why it's so important to have that plan ahead of time.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the things you've also talked about, you've brought up several times, other key people that you have brought around you
Hmm.
to help, as your sandwich between the two generations. Walk me through what that looks like or what that means.
Yeah. So on the Generation 3, the adult children or the graduating children side of things, there's certainly resources within the school systems, along with our advisor to talk through what's even possible for us to do. On the Generation 1 side of things, make sure you're connected to the right medical system for that particular person or for that particular family, so that you're addressing their needs as best as possible. And there's also advisors like senior care consultants. We have a great one here in Kansas City that can help you navigate where should our parents go next once they're moving out of the long time home that they lived in for decades. Where we want to caution folks is, unless you are a medical professional yourself, you don't have to become the caregiver, but you should get good at managing their care. So just make sure you're in the conversations as much as possible, as much as they're willing to let you help manage their care through the right professionals versus being the caregiver if you can help it. Because that's a surefire way for you to get burnt out and to possibly get derailed as you're trying to help them to get better. Okay.
More of the care coordinator than literally the person who's, divvying out pills and, doing
Right.
all the medical
Yeah.
medical daily stuff. Yeah, so you mentioned some resources like there's senior care consultants who can help you decide like what facility might be a good place if they're leaving the home, or even what resources would help me find in-home care.
Yes.
There's, certainly an estate planning attorney is a good person to have on the team because you need powers of attorney documents and things in place to help with some of that. I know in Kansas City we have organizations that are also nonprofits that provide support. There's one literally called Sandwich KC that gives information and support groups and education, those kinds of things. What about within the family? So if you have, let's say, an aging parent and you're the only child, then it's a little different than if you have an aging parent and you're one of, four siblings and those
Mhm.
siblings are married and brothers and sisters-in-laws have ideas. Any thoughts on helping everybody navigate what can be an emotionally challenging time together?
Yeah, and so as soon as you can identify who's the best coordinator within the family, if you're an only child, you just became the coordinator. But if you have multiple siblings with in-laws, let's figure out who is the best coordinator or the best team to kind of lead the care. So to the extent that your family coordinator can rally the troops, help them understand what's going on, and give everybody an assignment or help them lean into their strength, that's going to help that care coordination go much better.
My encouragement from what I've seen other families go through is to make sure you're regularly communicating to everybody, both what the needs are and what the updates are and what's going on, but also what each other are feeling because, I think that helps reduce resentments or maybe unrealized expectations, or maybe even, people don't realize all you're doing as the
Mhm.
care coordinator
Yeah,
and making sure you communicate that.
yeah. Because those family dynamics have been built over decades by the time we have an aging parent that's struggling. So medical situations will simply magnify or exacerbate any difficult dynamics that, that existed.
Maybe one last thing to think about is for those people who are in that sandwich generation, being smushed between the two. How do you stop from getting completely smushed? Sometimes that phase of life is a few months, but sometimes it can be years. I have a family member who as soon as everybody had finished college, right away elderly family members moved in. For more than a decade they had an older family member in their house and they were taking care of them. And so by the time they were truly empty nesters, it was years after the kids had grown and gone.
Yeah,
So it lasted a long time. So when you're in that sandwich season, how do you make sure you're okay?
yeah. Well, and that's where we'll remind clients, where are you getting your rest, or who is providing some relief or respite for you, especially if you're a single child in generation two trying to do all this. You need to find some respite. If you run yourself into the ground, you're not going to be able to help your parent or parents very much at all. So I'm going to read from the New Testament of the Bible, Galatians 6, 9, and 10. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to our family of the believers. So that's where Tammy and I get our strength, is from God and through our relationship with Christ in the Bible. Don't give up. Don't become weary. Keep going.
Well, thanks for sharing, Matt. I know it's an extra thing to take on in a really busy season, but I thought it would be an encouragement for other,
Yeah.
clients, people in the community who might be in that same sandwich spot. And I know we can always help with the financial side, but sometimes the demands are a lot more than financial. It takes so much off your mind to know, okay, the finances are taken care of. So we're always happy to help on the financial side.
Yes.
But there are other resources, and I like that. That's a good word to end on. Do not grow weary in well doing.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So if you feel like you're the sandwich right now, please come and talk to us. We can listen, talk you through it. This is a safe place to share your concerns, your celebrations, all the good things that are happening, along with all the challenging things that are happening. We'll help you through it.